to Brown County. I'm really happy that you joined us today for our second Zoom video call about the Brown County COVID-19 Resource and Response map that we launched just over a month ago now. It's hard to believe a month has already gone by since we initiated this work with your help and support. The overarching purpose of our time today is to provide you with an update on simply where we're at with this effort, as well as talk about next steps for all of us moving forward. So given that, we have 4 goals for our time together today. The first is to do exactly what I just said, provide an update on the progress we have made to date. Second, we want to announce an exciting collaboration with the folks from Keep On Wisconsin. Surely you've all heard about Keep On Wisconsin by now. They have done a great job at sharing messages of hope and inspiration with us over the past number of weeks. We're excited to share that they are providing all of us an opportunity to share our stories of impact through Keep On Wisconsin. So I'm going to call on Chad in about 10 minutes to share a little bit more about that with all of us. Then we'll move to collecting some of your feedback about the map itself as we aim to further develop and improve upon it. So we'll give you the opportunity to give us some feedback about how we can do that. And then lastly, we'll outline next steps for assessment, coordination, and collaboration as we continue to move this work forward. So let me start with this. As we announced over a month ago, the overarching purpose of the map is to demonstrate and assess how all of your organizations from all sectors across the county are responding to the COVID-19 crisis and meeting the many needs of our community members. I think it's fair to say that we have done a great job with all of you contributing to the map at demonstrating how you're responding. And we'll talk about that in just a moment. But if you look at the map, if you actually go to it online, you'll see that it is covered with points representing your organizations and the great work that you are all doing to support and serve the needs of our many community members during this unprecedented time. And ultimately, we're doing all of this to help and support those of our neighbors and friends across the community who need us the most right now. When we launched the map and shared this tool with you, we asked you to contribute information about 3 things. First of all, what your organization is currently doing, for example, the resources it's providing, the service it's delivering, etc. What your organization needs in order to keep doing what it's doing in the form of donations and volunteers. And then lastly, the needs of our community members, how your organization is responding to those needs. Basic needs like food, healthcare, childcare, etc. Thanks to you, we've collected a lot of information from many organizations across our entire county. And right now I'm going to call on my colleague Christian Roovers to share some of that information in detail with you. If you don't know Christian, he is the one that did all the heavy lifting before we launched the map. To launch the map, he's the one that did all the behind the scenes development of the map so that we all could use it moving forward. So Christian, I'm going to pass it over to you.
All right, thanks, Spencer. Yeah, so this information is as of the 11th. We've had 81 organizations contribute to the map, which is great. Our goal is to break 100 as soon as possible. Here we can see each different category that contributed. So, 2 businesses, 1 childcare, which includes all the Encompass locations, 15 government entities, which includes the Oneida submissions and then the libraries. Healthcare, we've had 1 housing submission. That page was added later, so you'll see some more information about that. Nonprofits were the largest group to submit. We had 37 nonprofits, 4 post-secondaries, and then 8 school districts submitted. So these are the map views which Google Maps provides to us. So you can see each category has well over 4,000 views. Housing, as I mentioned, I wanted to touch on this, was added later. So you'll see the views are quite a bit lower. But overall, we've reached a total of 5,317 views. One of the questions that we ask in the form is estimate the number of community members that you're serving currently during COVID. So that number totals to 44,414, which is 16% of the total population in Brown County. This is a summary of one of the questions on the Google form, kind of auto-populated from Google. What are the basic needs your organization is addressing? So I want to go into how to read this, but we'll go into some interpretation later. Each one of those bars, you'll see there's a whole number. That's the number of organizations that responded that they were meeting that need. So for childcare, 8 of the organizations listed that or checked it as one of the needs they were meeting. And then the percentage is just the distribution. Also at the very bottom, you'll see this 1.2%. That was just the other, so you could type in something specific. That's why there's only one occurrence of all of the other responses that were added.
Excellent. Thank you, Christian. I want to go back one slide for all of us to this number, 44,414. That's the number, as Christian said, that you all reported that your organizations, the number of people that your organizations were serving and supporting through the response that you were providing to them during this time of need. That is an extraordinary number. That's 44,414 people that are truly benefiting from all of the great work that you are doing. So if you go back to where we started and one of the overarching goals of the map to demonstrate how all of you and your organizations have chosen to respond to what's going on in our lives right now, that's nothing short of extraordinary. That's 16% of the total population. So there's clearly a number of other people that we need to serve and support as we continue moving forward. Those needs will continue to evolve and increase over time. As I think we've all realized, this is not a sprint as we'd hoped at the beginning, but a marathon. But we've got a lot to celebrate in the great work that you all are doing right now. So thank you on behalf of all of us for all of the things that you're doing to serve and support the needs of everybody in our community. One last slide here. Christian, I'll let you address this.
Yeah, so there are a couple options for adding or updating your information. So if you already submitted information, you could choose to resubmit the Google form, which is available on our website, or also we have a link that we'll share out. Or if you want to just email me directly, if you feel like it's a small update or something, I'm happy to make sure it gets updated on the map.
Great, thank you. And as Christian said, that link for the Google form that is on the website. So if you go to achievebrowncounty.org/resource map, there is a button at the very top of the page on which you will find the map for that form. Or like Christian said, you can email him at that address there. Thank you, Christian. So now I'm going to turn things over to our friend Chad with the Keep On Wisconsin campaign. Chad, you are unmuted, so take it away.
Spencer, thanks so much for the platform. I sincerely appreciate it. And thanks for everybody's time today. This is such an easy thing to talk about, and it's been so much fun to be a part of. So let me give you sort of a 100,000-foot view, and then I'll get into some details and then happy to answer any questions we might have. So Keep On Wisconsin came about, I was having a conversation with a couple of the area school superintendents, and this is when we were faced with daunting news flows, daunting news about the virus. Businesses had just begun to deconcentrate, and kids had not yet been sent home, but it was right on the precipice of that. And you could sort of see this looming event or scenario sort of starting to take shape off in the horizon. And we all just kind of said, hey, listen, we're better than this as a community. We can get through this. And by the way communities get through things like this is by pulling together and counting on each other and staying positive. And ultimately, out of that conversation, we landed on the fact that there's a lot of power in a smile and a positive attitude. And so how can we capture that for our community to help everyone just keep on and get through and do the best they possibly can. And so a couple of us businesses here in town got together, began to ideate a little bit, and then engaged Kate Burgess over at Elevate 97, and her team came together and came up with this phenomenal Keep On campaign for us. And it's been great. So we have a ton of yard signs and a really, really big social media presence. On social media, I'll get an update later today, but we have we have hundreds of thousands of impressions, hundreds of thousands of engagements. It's been a bit overwhelming. We had originally targeted the greater Green Bay area, and now it's gotten down into Madison, over in Milwaukee, et cetera. It's just been really, really cool. And, it's easy to say to people, hey, just keep on being positive, keep on checking on your neighbors. You started out by saying, hey, friends who need us right now. And that's what this is. It's all about who our friends are and who needs us right now. Kristen, you brought up a really interesting chart where one of the basic needs that some of the nonprofits or other orgs in the area are addressing is mental health. What we're finding is we're getting an extreme amount of engagement on folks who want this uplifting message and who are leveraging it. And so what I would encourage everybody to do on this call, if you don't mind, is to check us out on social media, because what we're doing is encouraging folks to get out there, post something positive about what they did in their day, or something that has a little levity to it, or something that's encouraging, or there's a whole host of ways to do that, little inspiring messages and videos. And we're finding that has got an organic momentum now that's been just super cool. And Spencer, if you don't mind, just one quick thing. We haven't released it yet, but I just approved today a media release. And so on Friday, we're going to give out 1,000 Keep On Yard signs. That's hard to say. So yard signs, Keep On yard signs, 1,000 of them. We're going to do that in conjunction with the Packers and with the American Red Cross. The American Red Cross is having a blood drive down at Lambeau Field. And Mark Murphy will be there, as well as Troy Streckenbach and others. And in conjunction with that blood drive, we're going to have a tremendous number of yard signs. People can pick them up and take them home, put them in the yard, tell their neighbor about it, check us out online, and connect with us, please. We would love it. And I'm happy to answer any questions anybody might have, Spencer.
Awesome. Thank you, Chad. We really appreciate, obviously, you and others coming up with the idea, working with Elevate 97 to bring it to life. And that's remarkable that you've gotten so much attention and engagement through all of this. So thank you for sharing that. One of my questions for you, and very much the reason why we reached out, was to simply ask, how can all of the organizations that are contributing to the map, as represented by the people on the call today, in particular, share their stories of impact with Keep On Wisconsin. Keep On Wisconsin can be a great platform to help share the work of these organizations and specifically the great things that they're doing. So what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, what we're finding is, thanks for that. What we're finding is via Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram that these messages are spreading incredibly fast. And so we're asking folks to use the hashtag KeepOnWI. We'll pick it up, we'll populate it, we'll get it out there, and just let this organic flywheel spin. If you're doing really positive things in the community, this is a great platform to get it out there. Just we're getting a ton of eyes on this thing. And so if you want to have if you have something you want to push and that's really community positive and in this spirit, connect with us on, again, either Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, or use the hashtag KeepOnWI. We'll pick it up, and certainly happy to re-social media it on any one of those platforms so we can leverage all the good things all you folks are doing. That would be awesome.
Awesome. So it sounds like that is the most immediate way people can
Yeah.
share those stories with the Keep On Wisconsin campaign and get those out to everybody that is following the campaign. That's awesome.
Yeah.
One thing that we would offer on our end is we will create a mechanism through the map for people to share their stories as well, because that's information that we want to populate on the map too. So in a follow-up to our call today, we'll send out an email with instructions for how to do that. So if you're willing, you can do both. You can share first and foremost with the Keep On Wisconsin campaign what you're doing. That's the best way to get it out. But if you are willing to share that same information with us, we'll create a mechanism for you to do that. It'll probably take the form of a form like the original Google form that we used to collect your information. And we'll post that on the map as well, because that is yet another way for all of you to tell your story related to how you are responding to the COVID-19 pandemic and serving the needs of our many community members.
Thank you, Spencer. Thank you for that.
And Chad, you and the Keep On Wisconsin campaign can then, we can then work with you to, if stories get to us that haven't gotten to you, we can send them your way. You can come to the map and source the map for stories yourself. So it will be a bit of a both and proposition for all of us.
Love it. That's fantastic, man. Thank you so much. That's great.
Does anybody have any questions for Chad in particular? You can unmute yourself and ask them. You can raise your hand using that feature. You can type them in the chat box. Chad, I understand that you have at least 5 more minutes with us before you have to go on to your next meeting. So if anybody has a question for Chad, now's your time to ask.
And Spencer, why folks are thinking about their questions, if they have any, it's important for me to say to everybody, this is not a fundraising campaign. This is, there are no funds being asked for and or collected. This is just some community businesses and not-for-profits and school systems coming together, supporting it sort of quietly to get it out there in the community. And there's no ask in return, right? Just use the art sign, use social media, love it, and put it out there. That'd be fantastic.
Chad, I might have missed this, or you didn't say it, one or the other. What time on Friday will the yard signs be available for people to come pick up if they're interested at Lambeau?
11:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. this Friday. Yep, and it's right down, let's see, by the American Family Insurance Gate at the Lambeau Leap statue.
Awesome.
All right. Yeah, thanks for anybody in advance. If there's any reason to connect, please reach me. I'm Chad at Schreiber. Happy to connect with you guys on this vein and through Spencer or what have you. So thanks for the platform and helping support us, Spencer, and we'll do the same right back at you.
Chad, are you comfortable if we share your email address and a follow-up with everybody? Are you comfortable with it getting out that way?
Please, that'd be wonderful. Yeah, great.
Awesome.
Thank you. Yeah.
Super. Last call for questions for Chad. And if not, we'll provide a way for you to get in contact with him. And you can certainly, as he suggested, connect with the Keep On folks by just simply reaching out to them via social media.
Cool. Thanks, everybody. Sincerely appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us again, Chad. Really appreciate you.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's move on. Time is precious, right? You all have a lot going on in your lives and work. So the next thing we want to do is collect some of your feedback, and we only want to take maybe 5-10 minutes to do this right now. Like we shared when we launched the map over a month ago, we're committed to continuing to develop the map, both from a technology standpoint, how it's used online, but also in terms of how the information on the map is used by all of you and community members. So we're looking to continue to develop and continuously improve upon the tool, and again, make it as useful as possible to both your organization and community members. So we'd like to just take a few minutes to ask you to consider 3 questions and share what's on your mind with us. First of all, we'd like to know from you, what features and or functionality should we add to the map? Second, what additional information should we collect? So we started by asking those 3 most important questions. What are you doing? What do you need to keep doing what you're doing? And what needs are you addressing? But we can use the map to collect more information in a way that would be helpful to you, your organization, and community members. So what else should we be collecting in terms of information? And then generally, what other suggestions do you have? We built this with the future in mind. We built it to serve as a tool that's useful to all of us and members, community members right now, but also knowing that, again, this is indeed a marathon, not a sprint, and this tool can be useful to us in the months ahead. So your suggestions, raise your hand, just go ahead and speak, type them in the chat box. You are welcome to do any or all of the above.
Hi, this is Bonnie from the New Community Clinic. And I was just wondering, now when we put something in, we have many programs running at one site. I find it difficult to put in there the different, because they do have different identities, and I find it difficult to put it in the site. I have to choose which program I'm going to put at that address, and I may have a dental and a medical program there, but I have to choose which one I'm putting in there. And maybe that's just the way I'm reading it.
So it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, Bonnie, thank you for sharing that. We can certainly help you figure that out and get whatever information you want to post on the map to the map in the way that you want it to be shared. We know that there are limitations to the form that we created. So if that form didn't allow you to do what you really want to do, all that we would ask is that you reach out to either Christian or me, and we'll work with you behind the scenes to make sure that your information gets up exactly the way that you want to get it up. Is that helpful?
Thank you so much. That's great.
And the same goes for anybody. So again, when we launched this, we knew that we were launching it with some limitations relative to what we could do with the form and in terms of collecting information. Just reach out to us. We'll work with you to figure out how to get up whatever you need to get up and update your information as well if you'd like to do that. Great question, Bonnie. Thank you for bringing that up. Other suggestions, questions about how we could develop and continuously improve upon the tool? And again, just speak up or type your thoughts into the chat box.
I'll go. If the intention is to keep the map mostly to Brown County or only to Brown County or kind of the greater Green Bay area, I'm wondering if you could make like zoom in on that area so that the dots aren't kind of all on top of each other. It's just a little bit, you know, you're kind of mousing around and trying to find everything, but I feel like it would call the amount of resources that are there, it would call them out a little bit more if we could see it more clearly. And that's not like a major thing, but just something I think would make it more readable, if you will.
Totally. Thank you, Sherry. Appreciate you saying that. That is one of the limitations to the functionality of the map. It is very much like a Google map. In fact, it is a Google map that we repurposed for this effort. You can zoom in or out on the map itself. There, if you look to the bottom of the left, there's a plus sign and a minus sign that you can use to do that on your screen. But it's a bit klutzy, to say the least, which is one of the reasons why we created the different tabs so you can toggle between the types of organizations that are responding to needs. We still intend to add tabs for the needs themselves. That is slated for the next iteration of our development of the map. But in general, we will continue to work on how that feature, that zooming feature, works to make it a much more smooth and easy to consume.
Spencer, I've got a couple questions here from the chat box. First up is from Sue Vincent. Hi, Sue. Her comment is food security is a large category. Should it be its own heading? And then the second one is, how can we help getting more housing resources on the map? I know Christian had mentioned that's a new category. Can you respond to those two questions? Then I've got another one.
Yeah, great question, Sue. Thank you for asking. So as if you looked at the graph that we showed earlier, food security is one of the major issues that's come up. So like I just said in response to Sherry's question, we're hoping in the very near future to add tabs for various needs, particularly the ones that have emerged as the most pressing relative to what you all have said you're responding to. So that's something that we will look to do and add a tab for. In terms of getting more housing resources on the map, we've done our best on our end to reach out to as many organizations as possible and to invite them to contribute their information to the map. But ultimately, the choice to contribute information is really in the hands of any individual organization. So one thing everybody can do to help us is to share information about this map with organizations or leaders of organizations with which or with whom you are connected, and invite them to contribute their information to the map. That's the best way right now. We know how to get the word out and extend an invitation to people to contribute to the map. So we would encourage you to leverage your own networks and reach out to those organizations. Alternatively, if you know of organizations that we should really be connected with and reach out to ourselves to encourage them to contribute their information to the map, just send us an email, send me an email, send Christian an email, or anybody on the Cheektown County team for that matter, and let us know who you think we should be reaching out to. So we're going to continue our own outreach efforts broadly and in a targeted way to make sure that every organization that has information to put on this map has the opportunity to do so.
Thank you, Spencer. So we have another question in the chat box from Jordan at Golden House. Hi, Jordan. Would it be possible to get a feature that indicates whether or not the organization makes referrals to other service providers?
That's a great question. I think we can definitely explore how to create that feature. In the interim, what you can do, Jordan, is in your own information about what Golden House is doing, you can indicate that you are making referrals to other service providers. In fact, anybody can do that. So if that is something that your organization is doing, I would just encourage you to provide that information to us so that we can put it on the map, and we'll figure out how to draw attention to that. Great questions. What other questions do people have, or suggestions for improvements to the map? Features, functionality we should add, additional information we can collect, excuse me, other suggestions for getting the word out about the map, for example. Well, these questions are not meant to be asked and answered just in our time together today. If, as we continue to move forward in partnership with each other, you come up with any other features or functionality, information we should collect, really anything that you think we should be doing with the map to make it that much more usable by you, your organization, and our community members, just let us know. Feel free to email us at any time. And offer your thoughts and suggestions to us. We'll keep going. I want to come back to this slide because at the end of the day, this is why we're ultimately doing what we're doing. This is why we created the map, not just for now, but as we continue to navigate our shared future together. What your contributions and your work are demonstrating through the map, but also in everything that you're doing for our community members, is that there are a number of needs that we are collectively meeting for our community members right now. But what we also know, and this is becoming ever more relevant to all of us as things progress, that there are many needs that are not being met. That's what's underneath that figurative tip of the iceberg. So the map is not only, again, to demonstrate how all of you are responding to the needs that we know about, but it's also intended to help us uncover or go beneath the surface of the water to stick with this analogy, and identify the needs that are not being met so we can figure out how do we meet those needs, which are ever evolving and ever increasing as we continue to move forward. Coming back to this graphic, here's what we know about what's going on based on the information that your organizations have provided. So here's how we can interpret the data on this graph, the information that you shared with us. First of all, we know that there are 81 organizations addressing these basic needs. We know that because you've told us, you've shared your information with us, and we're demonstrating that on the map. We also know the total number and percentages of organizations that are addressing these needs. That's what those numbers on the graph to the right on this slide tell us, per what Christian said earlier. We also know that these needs are real and relevant. They're real and relevant because your organizations are addressing them. You wouldn't be addressing them if there wasn't a need to be met. So these continue to be real and relevant relative to what we are all facing right now as we navigate the pandemic. We also know that there are many organizations that are addressing the same needs. We can tell that because if you look at the very top of the graph, 8 different plots on the map represent multiple organizations that are addressing childcare. 5 represent organizations that are addressing clothing. 13 represent that organizations that are addressing economic and financial support. So we know, based on what you all have shared with us, that a number of your organizations are all addressing the same needs, which is great. That's a way to amplify the outcomes and impacts of what you are individually doing. What we don't yet know from the information that you've shared with us is what and how many needs are not being addressed. So again, this gets right back to that slide with the iceberg. There are so many more needs that are evolving and increasing over time that are not being addressed. So we need to figure out what those are to address them and best meet the needs of our community members. We also don't yet know the efficacy or the effectiveness of our collective response. Your individual organizations may know your own efficacy, your own effectiveness. You may have data that suggests that you are achieving the outcomes that you set out to achieve in your response, and perhaps even some longer term impacts, which is great. What we don't know is the efficacy of our collective response based on the information that you've shared with us to this point. We also don't yet know what organizations are coordinating and collaborating and how they're doing that based on the information that we've collected. We do know that there are organizations coordinating and collaborating. In fact, those organizations were, in many cases, inspiration for us to develop and launch this map. For example, we know that through Operation Community Cares, there are lots of organizations that have come together to meet basic needs of community members. The Greater Green Bay Community Foundation and the Brown County United Way are coordinating their efforts in terms of how they are distributing emergency funding to your organizations that need it the most to continue meeting the needs of our community members. We know that's happening. What we don't know from the information that we've collected is how it's happening. Lastly, we don't yet know through this information what other opportunities exist for coordination and collaboration. Again, there are a number of organizations that are working together, but we don't yet know what other opportunities exist for us to do that. So that leads us to
Spencer, can I take a moment here for a question in the chat box? Would you mind?
Please, go for it.
I think it's a really good question. It comes from Jen Schmo through Circles Green Bay. Hi, Jen. And Jen is really just asking, is the response map just for specific services that have really come about because of COVID-19, or is the map morphing into something that is more general in nature to really include every community resource? And she's really pointing to housing as those resources had existed pre-COVID, now exist in COVID. So I think she's asking a great question of clarification in terms of which resources should be on the map and why.
That is a great question, Jen, and I really appreciate you asking it because it goes back to conversation that we had internally at Achieve Brown County about the long-term usage of this map. So I'll answer your question by talking about the immediate purpose of the map, which is, like I said at the beginning of our time together today, and when we launched it over a month ago, to demonstrate and assess how organizations are responding right now, specifically to COVID-19 related needs in our community. However, and again, this is in the spirit of we're no longer in a sprint, we are clearly in a marathon. Those needs are going to evolve, those needs are going to increase. And because of that, as you pointed out in your question, there are a number of services and therefore a number of needs that are under-resourced and not being met. So as this moves forward, as we continue to leverage this map, I think it will morph into more of a general community resource map that will serve an even larger purpose beyond what we're experiencing in COVID-19 right now. The last thing I would say to your question, Jen, is that if, again, there are organizations out there that are addressing needs that may not be directly tied to COVID-19, but are emerging as a result of the evolution of COVID-19 and how we're all experiencing it, then they should absolutely have access to and the opportunity to contribute their information to this map, because that's where the value of this will go well beyond what we're experiencing today into the months and even years ahead. And Jen, I saw that you made an additional comment to your point about how this will ultimately help us to show deficits. Very much so. I think that actually is a great tie-in to the next step that we would propose in all of our collective efforts using this map as a tool. So thank you for making that suggestion. So our shared vision and opportunity in all of this is, as we shared over a month ago when we launched the map, is for us to move from isolated impact where each organization is doing its own thing, or in pockets of our community coming together with organizations, to collective impact, where all of us are actively coordinating our actions and coordinating towards the same goals and measuring the same things to amplify our impact as much as possible. I think I said in our original call, that is how we are going to do our very best work in responding to the many needs of our community members during and through this pandemic. If there was ever an opportunity for us to come together in collective impact, now is that opportunity. So to that end, the map, again, is only as useful as organizations contribute to it, but what organizations do with it, what we all do with the information that we've collected to this point. So our proposal for a collective next step is to convene a collective response team of community and organizational leaders to do three things. To, first of all, take a closer look at and make meaning of the information we've collected. We've done a little bit of that goes back to the slides that I shared a few minutes ago, in which we pointed out ways we can interpret the information that we've collected, but there's much more meaning we can make of it. And it's not just Achieve Brown County that should make meaning of it, it's all of us that should make meaning of it. So we're proposing that we pull together a collective response team of community and organizational leaders to first take a closer look at that information and attempt to make meaning of it. Ask, how can we turn this information into action? Second, we know, as we've pointed out, that there's a lot of other information as well as insights and perspectives that we could gather and should gather to inform the decisions that we make about the actions that we take moving forward. So this team would also serve as a vehicle for gathering that information, and in particular, again, your insights and perspectives relative to what you are seeing, what you are hearing, what you are experiencing with the community members whose needs you are serving and supporting. Many of you and your organizations are interacting directly with community members. They have their own stories to tell, and this will provide us with a vehicle to collect and make meaning of their stories in a way that will help us address their needs that much better moving forward. And then lastly, and this is what it's all driving at, we would use this team to identify areas that reflect the greatest needs and the greatest opportunities for collective impact. So Sue, you brought up housing. Jen, you amplified the needs that exist in housing. Housing is clearly one of the greatest needs based on the information that we've collected and based on what we're hearing through the media and seeing and experiencing in the work that we do. So that is a potential area of greatest need and greatest opportunity for us to take collaborative action. So again, what we're proposing is that we convene a response team to do these three things. Again, take a closer look at and make meaning of the information, gather additional information, insights, and perspectives, and then move to identify and take action on the greatest needs as a collective moving forward.
Spencer, we've got another great question in the chat box. This one comes to us from Amanda Ashman, and she has noticed that there's really a need for some budgeting services. It's not yet on the map. She, of course, works with a local lender, and so she is asking if that is something she should add to the map.
That's a great question. I would say absolutely. So one way you can help us gather additional information, again, is by updating your own organization's information on the map or adding additional information. Amanda, you can use the form to add that information. You can email Christian. I don't recall off the top of my head whether budgeting is listed as one of those basic needs, so you can select other if it's not on the list on the form. If anybody has heard of or is seeing or experiencing other needs that are not listed currently on that basic needs list on the form, let us know and we'll work to add them to that list so that we can call them out as something different than other, but that they stand out in a way that's recognizable. So, second to last slide here. If you are supportive of and are willing to invest your time, talent, and energies in participating with us in this collective next step, then here's what we would ask you to do individually. In order to form this team, we would ask that you identify someone in your organization to serve on the response team. This can be you if you are interested in doing that, or it can be one of your colleagues to serve on the response team. And then once you've identified who that person is, I would ask that you email her or his name and email address to me at spencer@achieveBrownCounty.org so that we can begin to build the roster of team members. And then we will use that roster to reach out to those team members or potential team members and engage them in a kickoff meeting of the team. And again, that's our next step, as it says on the slide there. We'll collect the names and contact information that you provide us, and then we'll schedule a kickoff meeting of this team for Thursday or Friday of next week, which I know is only a week from now, but we'd like to move as quickly as we can to convening this team and get it going on its work. By the way, this is not just something that Achieve Brown County will be taking ownership for. I've been in contact with a number of other community organizations and their leaders over the past few weeks who have a real interest in facilitating the work of this team too, particularly organizations that operate in the collective impact space like Achieve Brown County. So this is something that we hope we will share ownership for with those organizations and all of you as we move forward. So this is not about necessarily what Achieve Brown County is doing. This is about what we are all doing moving forward. But we do see this as our most important collective next step. So if you are, or somebody in your organization is willing and available to join the response team, send that person's contact information and name to me. We'll make sure they get an invitation to participate in the kickoff meeting next week, and we'll begin to facilitate the work of that team moving forward. At the same time, like we said previously, you can continue to update your information on the map, add information, etc. You can also help us reach out and engage more organizations in contributing to the map. We are at 1:45, which leaves us with up to 15 minutes for final questions, comments, or feedback. Again, we really wanted to update you on the progress, tell you about the opportunity to submit your stories of impact with Keep On Wisconsin, give you a line of sight into how we can interpret the information that we've collected, what it tells us, what it doesn't tell us, and ultimately inspire you to join us in taking collective action, first in the formation of a community or a collective response team. Any questions, comments, feedback before we all go about the rest of our business on this Thursday? And like before, feel free to just chime in, type a question, comment into the chat box. We'll give you as much time as you need to do that. I am scanning the participant list. It doesn't look like anybody's raising their hand. And I'm not seeing any questions, comments, feedback in the chat box. So final call. All right. Well, we won't take advantage of your time any more than we've already asked you to give it to us. Thank you very much for joining us today. We are incredibly inspired by the work that you're doing. Really appreciate how you've engaged with us in this effort. Looking forward to continuing to work with you. And as always, if you have any questions, comments, or feedback, email us. Please do let us know if you or somebody on your team is interested in participating in the response team. We'll take responsibility for getting that going, and then we'll look forward to working with you in the weeks and months ahead. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day and weekend ahead.